The hidden door, a terrifying discovery. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's outside your home. It's what's already inside, watching, waiting. Mark and Lisa were just an ordinary couple, first-time homeowners, excited, hopeful. They had found the deal of a lifetime, a charming fixer-upper nestled in a quiet neighborhood. Too good to be true. The real estate agent had smiled a little too much when he mentioned the previous owner had left suddenly. But they shrugged it off. People move. Life happens. It was the third night in their new home when Mark first felt it, that subtle, uneasy draft creeping through the hallway. It was strange. There were no vents, no open windows, just a closet door, slightly ajar. Curious, he stepped closer. That's when he saw it. A door, hidden in the back of the closet, nearly blending into the wall. It was small, barely noticeable, almost like it wasn't meant to be found. Mark hesitated, but curiosity got the best of him. He grabbed a flashlight and squeezed inside. The air was stale, thick with dust. The wooden beams groaned as he crawled deeper. The space was tight, claustrophobic, and then his hand brushed against something soft. He froze. Slowly, he aimed the flashlight ahead. A sleeping bag, a half-eaten granola bar, crumpled food wrappers. His pulse pounded in his ears. Someone had been living here, recently, and then he saw them, a stack of Polaroid photos. His hands trembled as he flipped through them, one by one. His breath hitched. Lisa. Every single one was of Lisa. Candid shots, taken inside their home, brushing her hair, cooking, watching TV. Mark scrambled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. His mind raced. Someone had been here. Someone had been watching them. For how long? He slammed the closet door shut, locking every window, every door. He didn't tell Lisa right away. How could he? What would he even say? That night, he couldn't sleep. Mark lay in bed, heart hammering, listening to every creak, every distant sound. And then at 3 a.m., the closet door creaked open. Lisa stirred beside him, Mark barely breathing. His body was frozen, muscles locked in place. A shadow moved in the doorway. The sound of slow, deliberate footsteps filled the room. Mark woke Lisa. They jumped from their bed, ran and grabbed their daughter, her small body trembling in their arms. Then from the darkness, a voice, low, unfamiliar. You shouldn't have found the door. Some doors should never be opened. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for spine-chilling horror content. Please share with family and friends. The Locked Room, a terrifying tale. I thought I had found the perfect place, a quiet, charming house on the outskirts of town. Rent was cheap, almost too cheap. The landlord was an older man, polite, but something about him seemed off. But then the noises started. They were subtle at first, almost easy to dismiss. Just faint whispers in the silence of the night. At night, just as I was dozing off, I would hear it, a faint scraping sound, barely audible but unmistakable. It was like a distant echo, a sound that seemed to come from the depths of the house. At first I thought it was the pipes, or maybe a rodent. It seemed logical, something mundane. I even checked the plumbing and set traps, hoping to find a simple explanation. But the noise was too deliberate, too precise. It had a rhythm, a pattern that felt intentional. It was as if someone, or something, was trying to communicate, to send a message. A slow, methodical scratch, like something or someone was dragging their nails along the other side of that door. It sent chills down my spine. The sound was so eerie, so unnerving, that it made my skin crawl. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was nothing. I told myself it was just my imagination, playing tricks on me in the dead of night. But my mind kept circling back, unable to let go of the unsettling sound. It was like a haunting melody that refused to leave my thought. What was in that room? The question haunted me, refusing to be silenced. It lingered in my mind, growing louder with each passing night, until I could no longer ignore it. I grabbed my phone and called the landlord, my voice shaking with fear and uncertainty. The events of the past few days had left me on edge, and I needed someone to help me make sense of it all. He was silent for a long moment before letting out a heavy sigh, as if he knew something I didn't. His hesitation only added to my anxiety, making me wonder what he was hiding or what he feared. "I'll be there in the morning," he finally said. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning in my bed. My mind raced with thoughts of what could be behind that door, and every shadow seemed to hold a new terror. Every little noise in the house set me on edge, making my heart race with every creak and whisper. The house, usually a place of comfort, now felt like a stranger, filled with unknown threats. By the time the landlord arrived, I was exhausted, but I needed answers. I had been waiting anxiously by the door, my eyes darting to the clock every few minutes, counting down the seconds. Without a word, he stepped past me, crowbar in hand, and approached the door. He hesitated for a moment, as if reconsidering. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could feel my breath catch in my throat. Then, with one strong pull, loud crack as the door opens. The door gave way, revealing the unknown. The sound echoed through the house, and I braced myself for whatever lay beyond. There was a single chair in the middle of the floor, chains embedded in the wall, deep fingernail scratches in the floors, the signs of torture and bondage, the smell of death. "We shouldn't have opened it," he whispered. I didn't ask any more questions. That night I packed my things and left the next morning. The house still stands, and someone else lives there now. A new tenant has moved in, bringing life to the old walls. And I know the landlord gave them the same warning. But here's the thing about this place. That door, it's locked again, just like before. And no one knows who or what locked it this time. The mystery deepens. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for spine-chilling horror content. Please share with family and friends. The knock at the basement door. A terrifying true story. Have you ever heard something in your home that shouldn't be there? A sound that doesn't belong? I used to think I was the kind of person who could rationalize anything, until that night. It started the first week after we moved in. My wife Sarah and I had finally found what we thought was the perfect house. It was quiet just outside of town, and best of all, affordable. Too affordable. The first few nights were uneventful, but then at exactly 1 a.m. I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. A slow, deliberate rhythm coming from downstairs. I told Sarah it was probably the house settling, but she wasn't convinced. And the next night, when we heard it again, exactly 3 knocks, then silence, neither was I. By the third night, it was getting hard to ignore. The knocks were too distinct, too deliberate, like someone was waiting for a response. Sarah was the first to break. She shook me awake, her face pale. "I need to see what's making that noise," she whispered. I didn't want her going alone, so grabbing my phone, I followed her downstairs. As soon as we reached the bottom step, it happened again. Knock, knock, knock. This time, we were close enough to tell. It was coming from within the basement. I froze. Sarah clutched my arm, her fingers digging into my skin. "Ben, that's not the house settling." She was right. It sounded purposeful. I swallowed the lump in my throat, looking around. I nervously raised my phone. My phone's flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing the empty basement just as we had left it. No signs of forced entry. No animals. No pipes that could be making that sound. I let out a shaky breath. See? Nothing. But Sarah wasn't looking at the basement. She was looking past it. "Ben, what is that?" I turned, following her gaze, and that's when I saw it. At the far end of the basement, half hidden by shadows, was a door we had never seen before, a large, solid, thick black door. A cold chill ran down my spine. We had been in this basement many times since moving in. There was no way we had missed something like this. I stepped forward, reaching for the handle. Sarah grabbed my arm, shaking her head. "Don't." I hesitated, but then I did something I still regret. I turned the handle. The door groaned open. Behind it, a narrow tunnel stretched into the darkness. Cold air rushed past us, carrying a damp, rotten smell. The tunnel was lined with dirt walls like an unfinished passage leading somewhere beneath the house. I took a step closer, and that's when we heard it. Not knocking. Breathing. Slow, shallow breathing. And a voice saying, "Welcome," coming from deep within the tunnel. I slammed the door shut so hard dust rained from the ceiling. My hands shook as I twisted the lock into place. "We're leaving. Now." Sarah didn't argue. We packed whatever we could fit in the car and drove away that night, leaving everything else behind. The next morning I called the real estate agent, demanding to know what kind of underground structure was in that house. She was quiet for a long time before she finally said, "Sir, that house doesn't have a basement." I hung up. We never went back. But sometimes late at night I still hear it. Knock, knock, knock. And I pray that it never answers. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for spine-chilling horror content. Please share with family and friends.